Thank you for your enthusiastic response to Restoring Health Holistically. I would just like to make clear that I am not a medical practitioner. In order to heal my own illness over the past 17 years, I've become a holistic health author, educator, and an advocate. But this does not provide the depth of knowledge that's needed to treat illnesses. I research any illness I have, and then I make an appointment with a holistically trained practitioner to discuss a treatment plan. And this is a collaboration between you and your doctor. Western medicine primarily treats symptoms with drugs forever. I prefer to seek practitioners who are trained to treat the causes of illness so that I will get well. The titles that I look for are naturopathic doctor, or ND, functional MDs, orthomolecular doctors, chiropractic neurologists, and certified energy medicine practitioners. These TV shows are intended to raise consumer awareness of holistic treatments and explain how they work so that you can make informed decisions and find a practitioner to work with and get well. Thank you. Hello, I'm Gracelyn Guyol. After 3 years of interviewing holistic practitioners on this show, this season you get to ask me questions. For new viewers who have not seen it before, I ended personal bipolar symptoms in 2002 using specific holistic natural supplements and a long process of figuring out which ones were needed. To help others, I've written 2 books, Healing Depression and Bipolar Disorder Without Drugs, and Who's Crazy Here, which led to me giving 7-hour seminars for medical practitioners across the country. So I am not a practitioner, but I'm a very knowledgeable and experienced advocate of holistic healing. So tonight we're going to have questions that have been submitted by viewers through the Facebook page, which you'll see on the screen throughout the show. And helping me is Lois Arias. She's my Facebook account manager. Hello, Lois.
Hello,
great to have you
Gracelyn.
here. And she collects the questions through Facebook, and then she will read them tonight, acting in your stead, asking the questions, which I will then answer. So let's begin.
Okay. Are there natural remedies for hospice patients in severe pain if they don't want morphine?
Yes, there are quite a few of them. I'm going to just talk about 3. These are systems and that address many health issues, but in the process, they also help chronic pain. One of them is called neurofeedback, and this emerged from the field of biofeedback and probably 30 years ago. And what it involves is using computerized feedback to help train the user to improve the brainwave balance in their own brain. And the program, using electrodes on the scalp, reads the brain waves, and then the practitioner helps you figure out what's out of balance, and then gives you, it's a game-like program to teach you, let you learn how to alter and improve those brain waves as recommended. And this neurofeedback improves focus, reduces attention deficit, anxiety, PTSD, and chronic pain. For example, it would help with fibromyalgia as well. So what it does is, by improving the balance in the brain waves, it balances your sympathetic and your parasympathetic systems in the body. And so with neurofeedback particularly, there's a type of neurofeedback that is called P-Roshi, ROSHI, and that's particularly recommended for chronic pain. So you should ask if the neurofeedback practitioner does that when you call for an appointment. Another really simple device, handheld, is the Fisher-Wallace stimulator. It's about the size, a little bigger than your hand, and it's the FDA approved it in 1991 for depression, anxiety, insomnia, and chronic pain, and it helps all of those. The device is connected to wire leads with sponges that go on your temples, and that's held in place with a headband. And the device generates gentle electric pulses that are patented frequencies that stimulate the brain's production of serotonin and several other neurotransmitters in the brain. These in turn induce a healthy mood, sleep, pain reduction. So it's so safe that you do not, that you need a prescription from your doctor, but you can buy it direct from Fisher-Wallace. And so you buy it online, fisherwallace.com. The device costs about $700. There are discounts for veterans, and if you're not happy, if it doesn't work for you, get full refund. And I just have used this myself, and I've recommended it for a lot of people, and a lot of doctors also sell it as part of their practice. So it's been around for quite a while, and it's extremely good, and so I would recommend that to anyone for chronic pain.
Gracelyn, is that similar to the TENS machine, the transcutaneous electro-nerve stimulator?
Yeah, they're similar, but I prefer the Fisher-Wallace to the TENS because there are some differences, and so that's why I have a distinct preference.
Okay, and I had one more question before you get to the last part of this.
Okay.
And could you tell us what the difference between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic systems are?
I don't want to go into that right now.
We'll save it for another
Yeah,
point.
another
Okay.
point. Light therapy is another option. There is low-level lasers. They're also called soft lasers, cold lasers, have been used for 30 years by Europeans, especially for pain management. In August, I tried an LED light pad system from Light Wellness Systems I was interested in how it would work on my neuropathy, lower leg muscle, and joint pain from both of these, from tennis and from inherited tendency for diabetes type 2. So I rented this system for 2 weeks. And I have to say, it did help increase the sensitivity and the feeling in my feet. So it was beginning to help with the neuropathy. And, but what happened is, I was so intrigued by all of the things that it could do, that I didn't spend all of the 2-week time that I had it working on my 2 objectives. I tried all of the settings. I tried detoxification, I tried decalcification, I tried the hormone balancing, and a lot of other ones. And so my lack of focusing on the objective meant that I didn't see huge changes, but I did see some improvements. And so I am quite impressed with this system. It basically is taking LED lights that are in preformed pads. They lay directly on your skin because they have heat, but they don't get hot. And they are 3 different colors of lights, which have therapeutic value being projected through the skin. And one is a regular red, and one is a blue light, and one is stimulating and another is sedating. And then there is also pads that have the far infrared, which penetrates more deeply into the body and treats the systems. And so I'm really impressed with it. I'm intending to include this in my future therapy. And so if you want more information about this light wellness systems, go to theawareshow.com/Wes, W-E-S, who the name of the inventor of this. And you can get much more information very easily, and that's how I found them, is through the Aware Show. Next.
What are the top 6 healthy things that you do every day?
Okay. I eat mostly unprocessed foods. You open my pantry and you see probably very few, almost no cans. A few cans of beans because they take a long time to cook and they're very healthy, and so sometimes I resort to not cooking them from scratch. But basically, I go to the produce section and I try to buy everything fresh. If it's out of season, in this country, you know, we can get fresh things in the grocery store from all over the world. I'm sometimes careful about where I buy, what parts of the world I buy things from, because they don't have health standards that are as rigorous as we have in this country. So I eat unprocessed foods, fresh whenever possible, 5 to 9 vegetables a day. I eat perhaps 4 ounces of protein, a couple ounces of protein with breakfast, maybe 4 ounces or 2 to 4 with lunch, and then maybe 4 ounces for dinner, because you need adequate protein, because protein is what the body uses to heal and restore. Say you're an athlete and you do exercise, you're told to only exercise maybe every other day, because while you're exercising, you're making small tears in muscles and tissue and things during exercise. In order to heal those, body needs enough protein, because that's what the substances used to heal. It also needs other vitamins and minerals and antioxidants. So I'm just saying, you need a lot of vegetables, because that's where most of the nutrients come from, other than protein. I do physical exercise 30 to 60 minutes daily, and I make sure that I do whatever I think is fun as well as good exercise, because if it's not fun, you're not going to continue. I play tennis. I love to walk. I do gardening. I do yoga. So pick out the things that you would enjoy doing and that would motivate you to get out of the chair and exercise every day. Also, you know, do things when you're running errands, or if you're taking your kids to school or going to work. Walk up the stairs. Deliberately put more physical exercise into your routine, because that adds to the amount that you can get every day. I take a multivitamin and mineral every day. Actually, it's about 6 capsules to get everything that you need. Plus, I take 4,000 IU of vitamin D, which vitamin D is what you get when the sun shines on your skin and interacts with cholesterol in your body to make vitamin D. But a lot of us are indoors at the computers or at work a lot of our days, and we also, in the northern hemisphere north of Florida, you do not get the ultraviolet rays in the sun in the wintertime here. So I take it year round, because I'm not outside as much as I'd like to be even in the summer. And then I take 2,000 to 3,000 milligrams of fish oil a day, usually a capsule with 1,000 with each meal, and I do eat 3 meals, because the body needs to not run out of fuel in the middle of the day. And skipping meals, I'll talk about later, but it causes your body to produce adrenaline to bring your blood sugar back up, which is not a healthy way to do that. So you need steady little amounts of fuel throughout the day so that your brain has something to run on. I do work that I'm passionate about and that I really enjoy, like this show. I think this is a great deal of fun. I deliberately try to focus on the positive in my own life, what I'm grateful for, and in the positive that I see in the people that I spend time with. And I consciously make myself aware to feel grateful for all that I have and to express gratitude to people who are helping me. I think it's something that we really can't overlook. And by feeding them joy and happiness, it comes right back to you. What we give out is, there's like a mirror out there, and what we give out comes right back to us.
I wake up depressed in the morning, and I do positive inspirations for my other friends who are depressed, and by the time I'm done, I feel fine.
Isn't that great that you've learned to do that? And it's so simple. It doesn't cost anything. The only side effect is positive. That's great.
And I wasn't doing it to have it work on me, and it did.
Good, good. Okay.
What are some natural remedies to help icy bladder pain other than sticking to the diet?
I don't really know what IC stands for.
Okay, IC is interstitial cystitis.
Okay. Well, what I went for was bladder pain because I figured that's broad enough. So in conditions like this, you always want to work with a doctor who's trained to do holistic stuff because you need to have lab tests to make sure of what you have. And then it's your turn to sort of become a detective. You need to notice when the pain hits. And then when it hits, backtrack into what did you do a few hours before it hit? What did you do the day before it hit, the meal before it hit? Because you're trying to figure out what are the triggers and what are the causes. Does it come and go? Is it always there? If it comes and goes, what brings it on? What makes it go away? So in researching this, you need to look at your diet. And especially what I found is that artificial sweeteners, specifically Splenda, is known to cause a lot of bladder and abdominal pain, gas, nausea, headaches, heart palpitations, shortness of breath, dizziness, and anaphylactic shock. So in both of my books, I've been telling people with mental disorders, and I share this for those of you with the inexplicable pain, avoid artificial sweeteners at all costs. Aspartame generated the longest list of complaints the FDA has ever received for a product. All of artificial sweeteners are manufactured, they're chemical molecules, and they're manufactured as chemicals altered so that they can be patented, because it used to be that you could only patent unique molecules. So even if it was made from a natural substance, they had to alter it so they could get patent protection, which means that then they can make $1 gazillion. Now you can patent the processes by which things are manufactured as well as an original molecule. So these are really all unhealthy products. Sugar is more healthy, actually, than all of these artificial sweeteners. So use natural sweeteners wherever you can. But if you have bladder pain, I would suggest you go to one of my favorite sites for information, is the website of Dr. Mercola. And that's www.mercola, MERCOLA.com. And then put in the subject that you wish to search. I subscribe to his listserv. He's very knowledgeable. He's always ahead of the pack. And so depend on what he has to say.
And may I interject something that some people might not know?
Sure.
Interstitial cystitis is caused frequently by overdiagnosis, over-prescribing of antibiotics. I don't know if you remember the old days where you didn't have to see the doctor. You could say, I think I have UTI, and you're prescribed an antibiotic.
I never had anything like that.
I know, because you were smart enough not to.
Well, I know, but I just was fortunate enough not to have to deal with that. So it's not something that I have a great deal of depth of knowledge.
But for people out there who think they might have it, antibiotics is the last route you want.
Okay, good. Thank you.
You are welcome. Next question. What advice do you have for people who want to take less prescribed medications but are afraid of what might happen when they stop? For example, high cholesterol medication, allergy medication, pain medication, or any daily prescription.
Okay. The medications that were in that list, all of them are just treating the symptoms of an illness. And with holistic healing, you always go looking for the causes. And there's a big difference. If you're just treating the symptoms, you're never going to get well, and you're going to be taking that drug forever. And all of those drugs have side effects. So that's one reason that I am such a staunch advocate of going the holistic route first. It may be that whatever you have sometimes can't be solved holistically or solved quick enough holistically. So I'm not saying never use drugs. I'm saying they should be a last resort, not the first line of resistance. So I've just talked about holistic pain options. So let me just focus on the cholesterol medication and the allergy medication questions. Cholesterol is essential for all cells to function. The body needs it to make all the hormones which regulate all of our systems. So, they regulate our behavior as well. There has always been a significant, robust debate about the benefit of statins for cholesterol and these cholesterol-lowering drugs because they have so many side effects. So some experts today are now saying they believe the low-fat diets and taking all of the cholesterol out and cholesterol-lowering drugs are really contributing to the violent behavior that we're seeing, all the shootings and
Really?
And a lot of the craziness that seems to be becoming part of an epidemic. And they also believe that they're contributing to the Alzheimer's epidemic because the body needs a certain level of cholesterol to function properly. The hormones are the regulators, and they help regulate mood. And then, so there's still a big debate. And when there's a lot of debate, I'm always in the holistic area of saying, well, since holistic treatments have almost no side effects and mostly side benefits, I would go there first before I would try a statin. I subscribe to a magazine that I recommend to you called Life Extension Magazine, and it's because they've been around for about 30 years and they're always at least 10 years ahead of mainstream medicine, and they're always advocating and having research in their articles on holistic remedies instead of drugs. In November of 2012, Life Extension featured a story about a Dr. Sergey Zugan, D-Z-U-G-A-N. He's an MD and a PhD. And they talked about in this article his work showing that elevated cholesterol is frequently due to a lifetime of hormone disturbances. And so what you really need to do to bring cholesterol into balance is treat the hormone imbalances that are causing it. By doing so, Dr. Zugan routinely sees cholesterol drop from in the 300s to a healthy level, and a lot of serious symptoms disappear. So I suggest that you take a look at this article if this is a problem of interest to you, and go to the Life Extension Magazine website, www.lef, like lifeextension.com, and search for Dr. D-Z-U-G-A-N, and that article will pop up for you. Allergy medications. The antihistamines in allergy medications can raise blood pressure and heart rate. The decongestants that are part of these medications may trigger heart rhythm problems like atrial fibrillation. So I'm here to say, why take a pill when you can turn them off? I've turned off many allergies and sensitivities in the 17 years that I've been using holistic medicine. In myself and recently in my cat. So I'll tell you how. My book, Who's Crazy Here, describes the first allergy elimination technique that I used, and it's called, for short, NAET, which stands for Nambudrapad's Allergy Elimination Technique. And Dr. Nambudrapad is an Indian physician in Southern California who was allergic to almost everything except white rice and carrots. And so she got several degrees trying to figure out what was causing her allergies. And what she developed is a system. Some of the allergies are true allergies, and they're harder to get rid of. And some of them are food and substance sensitivities that are caused when you come in contact with something too frequently, like you eat the same foods all the time and all the time and all the time, and then suddenly 10 years later you're highly allergic to one of those foods because you've been overeating it. So I talk about her technique in detail in both of my books, Nambudrapad, NAET. So there's another good system that I recommend. It's called BioSet, and it was developed by Dr. Ellen Cutler. And that also you can find online. It's extremely highly regarded, widely used across the United States, and it's called BioSet. So Google that one. I wanted to talk about a practitioner that's in the New Haven area of Connecticut, so that many viewers might want to consult her. She was on my show 2 years ago. Her name is Dr. Ann Mitchell. She's a naturopathic doctor for 40 years, and for the last 20 years, she's also been a specialist in treating allergies. And she uses a computerized system that's called Advanced Allergy Therapeutics. It's non-invasive. It involves no needles, it's no herbal remedies, no supplements, and no avoidance of the allergy. And what it does is it scans your body for areas that show that you are allergic to something in that category. And then it also treats it using feedback from the computer to turn off that allergy in that part of your system. And I'm oversimplifying it because it's quite technical, and I don't want to spend the whole show talking about that, but it's extremely good. She's been using it. She has a great deal of success, and her name is Dr. Ann Mitchell, and she's in North Haven. And I called her because some of the way that you get so many allergies is that you have high levels of inflammation in the body, in certain areas of the body, that may, how can I say this? When you have an injury, the body creates inflammation at the site to draw the things in the system, in your immune system and in your body, that will come to that area and heal it. So a small amount of inflammation is part of the healing process, and that's normal. When you, say, have an undiagnosed food allergy, like I did to gluten, what it does is I was continuing to eat gluten, and I had no stomach pain or any indication that I had an allergy to that. But what it was doing, it was causing my gut, my whole digestive area, to be inflamed for years. And so the inflammation, too much inflammation in the gut, causes the lining of the gut, which is very tight and only lets certain size molecules through, it causes that lining to loosen up and become like a porous cheesecloth. So partially digested food molecules that are not fully digested because your digestion is inflamed and it's not working right can filter through that permeable barrier and get into the bloodstream. And then the immune system sets, an alert, there's an invader, because a molecule of that size is not supposed to be in that place. So then they start an immune attack on whatever that is. And so anytime this can be a food that you eat frequently, but you don't know that you're immune to it. The only symptoms I had was I had extreme shoulder pain. Both shoulders were so arthritic that I couldn't sleep on either side at night for 3 years. But my father had had arthritis pain in his shoulders in his 40s, and so I just thought that this was sort of an inherited thing and there wasn't anything I could do about it. When my naturopathic doctor identified that guessed, because of the gut bacteria that I had was not appropriate, did not have the complete line of good bacteria that you should have in the gut, she said, the only thing I know that kills off the gut bacteria like that is an allergy to gluten. So she said, go off of all wheat, all gluten products, and she ordered a lab test testing me for antibodies to the gluten substance, which is gliadin, and it came back that I was highly allergic to gluten. So, so when I followed a gluten-free diet, it only took 6 weeks and all of my shoulder pains disappeared. So undiagnosed allergies that you don't even know you have that are causing arthritic pain instead of, because they're not in the gut, can cause you to go to allergy medication. But you'll have to take it the rest of your life. And using these different devices, you can now turn off many of those allergies if they're inappropriate and not ongoing. So I did that on my cat because when
I was going to ask about that.
when he was a kitten, he was only about 8 months old, and he was an indoor-outdoor cat, and he disappeared for 4 days, and we were really worried. And he finally dragged himself back. He'd been hit by a car, and his hind leg, shoulder of the hind leg had been dislocated, and so he literally sort of crawled home. So I took him to the vet, and they said they couldn't reset the leg, but for me to just put him in a small area where he couldn't try to move. And lots of times animals' bodies would heal if they're immobilized. I mean, not, he was in a little small area. And so I did that, but they gave him massive amounts of antibiotics. And I was not knowledgeable enough at that point in my life to say, hey, you got to give him probiotics along with the antibiotics to replenish the bacteria in the gut. And so several years later, he developed severe itching and always scratching, always licking, to the point he licked off half of his fur, and he was always digging. And doctors gave him steroids, but I knew for a young cat that wasn't a good solution long term. And so I called this Dr. Ann Mitchell and said, do you know of any vet what vets might use? And she said, yes, they use the allergy elimination technique too on animals. So I went online and found a vet that offered that service, and they treated my cat, and he stopped all the itching and licking. And so itching and licking can also be caused by worms, so you need to have them tested for worms and treated. But when that doesn't work, they may have an allergy, and this technique could resolve that.
I would like to get over my allergies of animals.
Oh, you can. They can treat. NAET treats that too. So most allergies to animals, to specific pollens, to grass, all of that is eminently treatable now. So you don't have to take a pill. You can actually get it treated. And I wasn't able to eliminate the allergy to gluten. That's a gene that gets turned on, and they could turn it off through the allergy elimination technique, but it didn't hold, so it would come back. And I did that twice, and so I just decided, okay, I need to be gluten-free because that one's not staying turned off, and I don't want my gut to be inflamed all the time. So I didn't want the arthritis. Okay.
The next question, how soon should a doctor be informed of symptoms such as confusion or exhaustion or any other aberration? Should we attempt to Google the symptoms or let medical establishments make that first decision? And how do we recognize whether an elderly person needs immediate medical attention?
Okay. It depends on the severity, and it depends on the situation. If it's a mild confusion, or exhaustion, it can simply be caused by dehydration and the drop in blood pressure that comes when you don't have enough water and fluids in your system. And that's very common among the elderly. They don't get thirsty, so they have to be encouraged to drink, but when they drink, they tend to drink tea and coffee, and both of those are diuretics. So you need to have people drinking water. Fruit juice may have too much sugar, so if you want to give them a fruit juice flavored water, you can get some of the bottled waters that have artificial flavoring or a natural flavoring, but is a flavoring without sugar. So it's just a flavored water. If you can guess that it's dehydration, if it's a hot day and the symptoms are mild, get the person out of the heat. Put cold towels on their face and the back of their neck, and particularly make sure, give them 2 or 3 large glasses of water and ask them to drink. To the water, you may want to add salt and electrolyte powder if it's available. When you perspire minerals, including salt and the electrolytes, which these are important minerals, and it's important in the body because the minerals in the body, these electrolytes that are minerals, are sodium, chloride, potassium, calcium, magnesium. These are all, they are used to conduct electrical impulses through the body's electrical system. So they're really vital to health. And so athletes may sweat them out too, but usually if they're if they're an inexperienced athlete, they may not know and they may faint. But in younger people, this is not nearly as dangerous as in older people. And so your response needs to depend on whether you think this could be due to dehydration from sweating or from not drinking enough fluids. And so that would be the first thing. So if you give them fluids, I fainted when I was out gardening one day. I hadn't been drinking enough. It wasn't all that hot. I just was dehydrated. And so I went in, I took a tablespoon of water, put it in about a 12-ounce glass, and I chugged it down. And then I went and I called my naturopathic doctor because I had never fainted in my whole life. And I suspected it was dehydration, but I wanted a second opinion. And she returned the call and said, yes, it's probably dehydration. You're going to feel strange for about 24 hours. Keep drinking, get some electrolyte powder, get that into your system too. And I was fine the next morning. So it can be very simple and no need to. But then, if dehydration is unlikely and the confusion is accompanied by pain or an unusual sensation or numbness anywhere in the body, if it's accompanied by nausea or sweating that's not because of heat, by dizziness or a sudden headache, call 911 immediately, because these can be the symptoms of a stroke or a heart attack, and speedy response is really crucial. So if you're pretty sure that it's not dehydration and they have any of these other little symptoms along with the confusion, you need to get help, professional help, right away.
Thank you. That was this woman also that the question was asked about recently lost her husband too.
Okay.
And that sometimes can affect this, am I correct?
Yes. So.
Okay. Related to question 5, I recently learned that there is a correlation between low sodium and headaches caused by a number of factors, including heat stress, inadequate fluids, not eating enough, and I wonder if there are any supplements that somebody can use to get over the hump.
Okay, well, I've just talked about low minerals and high heat and not drinking enough water. But what I would say to this caused headache here can be caused when the body runs low on fuel. When your blood sugar gets too low, I always get, the first thing that happens to me is I get a headache. Mm-hmm. And so skipping meals can make you feel anxious. You can feel foggy-brained. You can be unable to focus. And it's simply because your body's run out of fuel. And when your blood sugar runs low, you get all of these symptoms: anxiety, heart palpitations. So it's in yourself, it's easy to figure out, oh, gee, I didn't eat any breakfast this morning. All I've had, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I had a dinner last night, but all I've had since then is a cup of coffee, or worse, a donut. So what happens is the body starts to run out of fuel, and when the blood sugar gets too low, even while you're sleeping, if you haven't had adequate food, it puts adrenaline into your system, and it will wake you up. Sometimes people wake up in the middle of the night. It's because of low blood sugar, and the body is waking them up to get them up to go get something to eat, because if your blood sugar drops too low, you can actually die. So pay attention to these funny little quirks, messages from your body. So the body puts in adrenaline, and that causes the blood sugar to rise. And so it brings you out of, well, this is what happens to diabetics. If their blood sugar gets too low, or if their blood sugar gets too high, it becomes really dangerous. And so if lack of food is the obvious cause of the headache, a small glass of orange juice, not a big glass, small glass, is customarily used to bring the blood sugar levels back up so that you feel good pretty quickly. If you drink too much juice, then it skyrockets your blood sugar, and then within a couple of hours it will drop abnormally low, and then you'll be back into the low blood sugar cycle. And those cycles are really one of the things that contributes to alcoholism. In the holistic treatment centers that treat alcoholism holistically, they have found that 95% of alcoholics have blood sugar dysregulation. And so what happens when their blood sugar drops low, they're really hungry, and they are thirsty, and so they choose alcohol because it makes them feel better quickly. But what happens is it spikes their blood sugar, and then 4 hours later, they want another drink. And that can happen with foods. If you eat sugary foods, such as a donut and coffee with caffeine for breakfast, it spikes your blood sugar, and I've done this, so I know. And then by 11 o'clock, I was feeling anxious. I was so shaky, I could hardly hold a pencil. I couldn't think straight. And it was really because I just didn't have enough nourishment in my body. So food is really required. And if you start getting headaches, take a look at, there's many different causes of headaches, but one of them can be inadequate food recently, and your blood sugar has dropped too low. Oh, I just looked at my notes.
You have a story.
Yeah, I was going to tell you one story here. I had a mother bring in her son to me for a consultation, and he said that he was, I don't know his age exactly, but he was in his early 20s. He said he couldn't think clearly. The only work he could keep is working casual labor on a construction site, and he was living out of his car. And so he didn't have much money, and he couldn't afford to go see a fancy doctor. And I said, okay, what do you eat? And he said, for breakfast he ate coffee and a donut. For lunch he would go to a convenience store near the site, the work site, or on the way to the work site, and he would maybe have a bag of potato chips and a candy bar to give him some energy to get through the afternoon. And then after work, he'd stop at his mom's house, and he'd have a cup of coffee and a piece of her great chocolate cake. And so I said to him, do you realize that you've been doing hard physical labor all day, and you've had not one nourishing thing to eat all day? And it's no wonder your brain can't work, because you haven't given it any fuel. It's very simple. And so I suggested to him, because he had very little money, that instead of going to a convenience store, he'd go to a grocery store every now and then he'd buy a big, giant economy-sized jar of peanut butter, or he'd go to a food pantry where he could get one, and and that he buy a loaf of whole grain bread, and then he'd make himself some peanut butter sandwiches for lunch. Inexpensive. What he spent could last for several days. Then he also, while he was in the grocery store, that he buy a bag of apples, because when you buy fruit at a convenience store, you may pay $1 or $2 for one piece. If you go into a grocery store and you get these bags, they may be smaller pieces of fruit, but you get a dozen or more for $3 or $4. So you could eat much more longer if you don't shop at convenience stores that really have things that are convenient but very expensive compared to grocery stores. And that he pick up a bag of carrots, some celery, any other vegetable that he liked to eat that he could eat raw, because he obviously didn't have any cooking facilities. And he said usually he would have some fast food for dinner. And so I suggested that he get pre-washed salad mix, put that with the fast food. He was probably living on pizza and who knows what else, but at least there was some protein and there was some carbohydrate. He just needed to add in a lot more of the vegetables that had the nutrients that he wasn't getting. And then I said to go to a health food store and get a big tin of protein powder. And this would probably last him for a couple of weeks, and he could make protein drinks every day on site. Just the protein powders come in all different flavors, and you can get chocolate and strawberry and raspberry and peach, and he could put some of that in water, shake it up, and have a protein drink on the job site instead of more coffee, because the coffee just stimulates more adrenaline in the body, but your adrenaline production system's going to run low if you keep draining it like that. So, and he came back to me probably a month later, and he just stopped by and said, "I wanted to thank you." He said, "I'm feeling a lot better, I'm thinking a lot better, and I'm earning more money."
Of course, because he could work.
Because he could think. So it sometimes is not rocket science.
No. Should someone's need for vitamins or other supplements be based on blood tests or a physical exam?
Physical exam and the patient's description of symptoms are frequently used to be indicators and to check for specific things that can only be checked physically, that can't be checked by a lab test. So you need both. But when you're wanting to know exactly what vitamins or minerals are low, you really need to have lab tests. They can test, what deficiencies you have in calcium and magnesium, what deficiencies you have in the vitamin Bs. They can test for, thyroid levels and other things like that. But particularly in supplements, they can test for your need for essential fatty acids, for instance. So, and your vitamin D levels. And all of these are supplements that you can take. So I would opt for annual lab tests of basics like essential fats, vitamin D, your full complement of a blood, routine blood test. Holistic practitioners, however, tell me that the B12 vitamin test is not very accurate. A lot of them are not very accurate. And there's one that I wanted to tell you is the only one that they recommend, and it's called methylmalonic acid B12 functional status. That's methylmalonic acid B12 functional status. And this is important because B12 is really crucial to brain function, and it is, if B12 is low, it can trigger, you can begin having, if you're elderly or even not so healthy and younger, it can trigger strokes, mini strokes in people. So it's really important to have adequate B12. And if you're vegan or vegetarian, you need to take a B12 supplement, because you're probably not getting sufficient B12 because it's mostly found in animal protein and a few other uncooked egg yolks and things that you're not eating. So you need to take a B12 supplement that goes under the tongue and is dissolved and goes through the mucous membranes.
If you get blood results back and the numbers are not in the normal range, yet your doctor says, oh, it's nothing, how do you get the right interpretation of the results, and who would you go to?
If your doctor doesn't take time to answer your questions and take them seriously, get a new doctor.
Yeah, bye-bye.
But the reality, and have some compassion for doctors, because the reality is that due to traditional medicine, the way doctors are trained, and the insurance system, the way insurance will pay, doctors today only have about 10 minutes to see each patient. And that's why they don't go into things that they don't feel are critical. But if you want more time, join a doctor who has a concierge practice. With these, you pay an annual fee, and then you pay a smaller fee for each visit. But what this means is that they are available to you, and they answer your phone calls in person. And they spend more time with you because they can control their time better with this kind of a practice. Holistic medical practitioners, naturopathic doctors, typically book 30-minute or 1-hour sessions. They cost, usually 30 minutes is around $75, $85. In Connecticut, my insurance covers the doctor's visit. It doesn't cover the natural supplements. Mm-hmm. For an hour, you'd expect to pay between $150, $180 for the visit. But this gives you, I usually, my naturopathic doctor usually books me for an hour whenever I call, because I always have so many questions and so many things I want to ask her about and discuss with her. So that's a luxury that I give myself, because it's part of how I learn, and it's also part of how I stay healthy. And I only have to see her like 3 times a year, maybe even twice. So I don't feel that it's a splurge. I feel like it's essential to what I'm doing.
It's part of what you need. Are there any options for the poor? Free insurance through disability would kill me with meds, but I can't afford a naturopath.
Unfortunately, there's not a lot. I'd like to interest insurance companies in covering holistic treatment because it saves money, but they're in the business of making money on people's illnesses, so they're not terribly interested.
No.
But I only spent $3,000 out of pocket to end my bipolar symptoms over 2 years. It took me 2 years, but that's all I spent, seeing holistic practitioners and working with them. And I was able to end my symptoms in that process. One hospitalization for bipolar disorder or a psychiatric hospitalization averages $11,000. So our medical system, 5 minutes, our medical system would save a huge amount, because mental illness is one of the biggest costs in the whole medical system, because so few people get well. So I would like to see government agencies require the insurance industry to cover holistic medicine, and that would bring costs down for a lot of people, because you get well, and a lot of people would be able to stay well. And large corporations that self-insure for their employees, because it's cheaper than paying for insurance for each employee, if they began authorizing patients to use holistic medicine, their costs would drop as well. But as consumers, what I tell consumers is vote with your money. You can seriously shop for insurance and ask for insurance that covers holistic medicine, and over time, that demand will create a supply. So you have the power of how you spend your money and how you choose to treat yourself. And sooner or later, all companies have to concede to consumer demand to remain competitive. We have about 3 minutes left.
Okay, let's see what the...
Oh, then let's just skip the last question. Let me finish this.
Yes.
Because there is one thing that the poor can use. The most effective, least expensive holistic treatment that treats mental illnesses as well as all physical illnesses is called homeopathic medicine. It's a 250-year-old treatment discovered by a genius German, and it is covered by the healthcare systems in India, Mexico, Cuba, and Brazil because it is so inexpensive and very effective. Of course, it's not covered by any government programs or programs for the poor in this country. And you may ask why. And it's a long story, but it's basically the remedies, when they were first discovered, were highly diluted because Dr. Hahnemann, the inventor, didn't want people in his era 250 years ago who tended to think if they took more of something, it would be better. And so the remedies are inexpensive. They only cost maybe $5 or $7, and that may be a whole month's treatment. You have to pay for the practitioner's fee, but the remedies are highly diluted, and yet they still are very effective. When in the 1950s, when doctors would analyze these using conventional analytics at that time, they couldn't find a single trace of the original therapeutic active ingredient in these remedies, and so they discarded them and said, well, they're a fraud. But they were maintained in Europe and these other countries because they worked. And so they didn't know how they worked or why they worked, but they worked. And so what they've discovered in recent years with high-powered microscopes is that what is in these remedies, homeopathic remedies, the minute particles are nanoparticles that we're just discovering. And there is hot research on nanoparticles today. And these are nanoparticles that were discovered and figured out 250 years ago, but they didn't call them the same thing. So homeopathic medicine is very scientific. It works very well. It's very inexpensive. And I think that you should ask your congressman to get it included in all health treatment plans. So we have about 1 minute, and that's not enough to answer the next question, so we'll carry it over to the next program. Thank you so much for joining us. Please send your questions to us via my Facebook page, which is on screen, Holistic Healing with Gracelyn. Lois will collect them, and then she puts them in order and sends them to me, and we figure out the next show or the next few shows. Thank you so much. Stay healthy.